Welcome everybody, this is General SharePoint Development Special Interest Group, and this is the bi-weekly sync, and it is 23rd of January 2020, which is pretty cool. Now, this is the General SharePoint Development SIG, which means that we talk about everything else except SharePoint framework, but obviously we can touch that in the topics as well, and probably we're going to touch that today in certain areas as well. But we do have a separate SharePoint framework special interest group and PnP special interest groups happening bi-weekly on Thursdays, so every single Thursday at this time, there's always a community call. Woo-hoo! And apparently based on the community call surveys and discussions and the polls which we did, you do not actually mind that there's quite a few calls. And so some people obviously didn't want to have this many calls and they can't join all of the calls, but majority of you were saying that actually it is a good thing that you have enough calls. You don't necessarily want to have more of them, but the existing amount is good and you're willing to actually at least check some of the recordings later on, which is a good thing. So we'd rather provide you additional content where it's suitable. Now, let's actually go to today's agenda. So we're going to do a quick recap on the PnP CSOM, where we're heading with PnP CSOM Core side, PnP PowerShell, and the modernization tooling. So just updating everybody what's happening on that side, making sure that you're aware of the goodness and everything else what's happening there. So that if you are using any of those tools, you are up to date on things. We can kind of potentially hint where we're heading during the spring, potentially on those sections. There's some interesting development on that area, which seems really interesting, but that's going to take still some time. And I haven't agreed anything to talk about these things with Bert and Irvin, so let's see if we can actually touch that. Now, today we'll have also 3 different demos. We're going to talk about the updates on the SP DevDocs issue list support model, which we actually applied yesterday on the SP Dev issue list. We wanted to clear out and do a kind of a reset on the things which haven't been moving or we haven't actually worked on them in the engineering side. So we need to do a quick reset of things, which is beneficial for everybody. So that means that we're cleaning up stuff which isn't moving. And that's definitely a good thing. And the purpose of that one is that we have more time on the relevant issues. And if we accidentally, by the way, closed some of your issues which are still valid, please do reopen them. That wasn't our intention, but we needed to clear some air over there as well. And I'm going to do similar exercises on the other repositories in the future as well, because we to be fair, we haven't done a good job on staying up to date on all of the incoming questions and asks and everything else, and we need to figure out how to do that. Some of that will be automated, some of that will be something else in the future, because we definitely want to help you with these things. Now, the second demo is from the Chris Kent. We agreed that even I don't know what he's going to present, so this is going to be a surprise. We're going to take a massive PR risk with Microsoft, so we're going to let Chris Kent to do a surprise demo on that one. Well, knowing Chris, I think it's a good thing to do. And then the main demo, so to say, not taking anything away from Andrew and Chris, is definitely Vincent and Frank. Vincent pretty recently moved into Microsoft, so he was an MVP on the Office Dev side and then moved to the Microsoft. But before he moved, he worked together with Franck Cornu to create a reference implementation / tutorial on a complex workplace provisioning automation. And this really cool stuff, which is across the Microsoft 365 dev, let's say, platform, so works on Teams and SharePoint and all of that stuff. So really cool stuff, which will be highly beneficial probably for many of you, because I think that's quite a typical scenario what enterprise customers want, or what your IT might ask you to do for them. Or, well, not IT, the business typically asks and IT delivers, but that's a separate discussion. Now, quick recap on the opportunities. And by the way, on the surveys, we did get some feedback on why on earth you're always recapping the existing resources. And that's by design, because quite often in these calls, even up to half of the people in these calls are new. So they haven't actually heard about the fact that why and how to engage with the community and what are the resources. So we really want to make sure that people are aware of these, and that shouldn't take more than a few minutes. So, but quickly recapping, we do welcome community demos. We encourage community demos. That's probably the easiest way also to, if you're looking into getting an MVP status, doing presentations in their schools and being active on a community side, definitely is the easiest way to do that. That easiest way to actually get queued up to be a demo is to ping me, Patrick, Bert, some of the core team members, and then we'll schedule you on any of the upcoming spots. Contributing in GitHub, absolutely welcome as well. well, because we actually get a lot of issues and a lot of things. So going to the issue list and helping with the incoming load definitely helps, and incoming questions and ask and answering those, or contributing on potential issues as well. A lot of the, I would say 99% of the people who are active in our GitHub repositories are not actually getting paid. Sure, this is, as an example for my job, this is part of my job, but a lot of the people who are actually contributing in this open source efforts do not get paid. So it's not like you can expect Microsoft to fix things, because actually quite often it's not Microsoft who's even built the solution which you are using. So we're building these together as a community, which has a lot of benefits as well. And last thing here is to provide feedback. So we need to know if something isn't working. Please let us know. If something is working, please do let us know as well. And we as human beings tend to always promote negative things, so positive feedback is welcome as well. So let us know what works and what's interesting, and that's something which we should bet on. Will give us a sign, an indication that that's an area where we should be investing in the future as well. Good. Quick recap also on the resources: AKMS SB Dev Docs, our documentation. We're working on an updated tutorial videos and tutorials. There was a lot of updates there recently. AKMS SB Dev videos, new stuff getting released actually every single day, which is a pretty cool thing. AKMS SB Dev issues for issue list. So any dev issue, go there, submit an issue, let us know. We'll try to help you. And then GitHub open source, github.com, SharePoint, and GitHub PnP. A lot of stuff happening over there. Don't start from scratch. Go and check out what we have available and start using the existing assets. All of that stuff is being provided using MIT license, which basically means take it, use it, and make money out of it as well. We don't really care. It's there for you to benefit. Now, quick recap also on the GitHub side and community side. We do have this awesome initiative, Sharing is Caring initiative from David Warner, and there's multiple other people helping in here as well. But if you don't feel comfortable of contributing, please go and have a look on what the Sharing is Caring initiative is all about, and that's going to help you to get started. So the whole point of this one is making sure that you feel comfortable enough to submit pull requests or make changes and assist the other ones in the community. Really easy way to get started. So really great stuff from David Warner on that side. But let's go to the PnP CSOM Core library. Quick recap on what's happening here. Bert, I saw you on the call.
Yes, I made it to the call. All good.
Yay!
Yay! So last week we released the January release of PnP CSOM Core library. The name is, by the way too long. We should probably think about a new name for a new library. So what is in there? We bumped the .NET version from 4.5, which has been like 4.5 from the early days, from the beginning actually, to 4.6.1 to enable us to use additional NuGet packages. Then the other big thing is the Pages API has seen some updates. Both in the API as in the provisioning engine for two reasons. The main reason is this multilingual page support. So we are actually rolling out multilingual in this quarter. It should hit your target release quite soon already. Maybe it already hit your target release. I don't have an exact schedule, but really soon. And once you have that, we allow you to actually create multilingual solutions, packages with the as a PnP provisioning template, for example, or use the API to trigger the creation of translations of existing pages, etc. So all of that is there. The same category, there's Spaces support, probably not so widely used yet because it's not public. But for the folks that well, we announced Spaces. I think that's that's not a secret. So, but more is coming there.
Yeah, just quickly clarifying there, this kind of an interesting situation where we do not have a way of introducing capabilities in the provisioning engine, which would be only available internally in Microsoft. So now that we are already internally using Microsoft Spaces and testing things, we added that support in here, so we're able to use it in internal usage. Now that means that whenever the Spaces is going to go to public preview, everybody will have the capabilities available and they're tested, which is a good thing. So we're eating our own dog food, so to say.
That also indicates there are some internal customers for PnP.
Movement. Yes, that's true as well.
Which is a good thing.
That's true as well. That's true as well. Now, let's not going to spend too much time on this one, but also a quick teaser. Maybe I hinted this when we started the agenda. So we do have an active movement on the .NET standard and this kind of a new modern ways of doing .NET-based implementation. But we don't have an ETA yet, and we don't have an exact timelines. But there's now really active plans internally, so things are moving. So that's kind of a teaser for those who are waiting for the .NET Standard and also .NET Standard CSOM Core version. So we are looking into having all of this available in the .NET Standard as well. Super confusing way of indicating what we're doing, right?
Kind of. I just
super clear. Right?
Told like we need a shorter name, but you made a whole story about it. Meaning,
yeah, there we go. Yeah, but I did say that there's some nice development related on .NET Standard and Core. Anyway, so let's move on. And I can hear Irvin on the call as well. I heard you laughing. So let's actually let you do a quick update on the PnP PowerShell.
Right, so we're not going to rename PnP PowerShell if there's a .NET Standard version or a .NET Core version coming out from PnP PowerShell, which will be the obvious result of that thing that Vesa tried to wrap into a long story. Yeah, so PnP
but it will be
PowerShell,
PnP PowerShell Core, right? We need to defend it. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Well,
okay, let's hopefully this is not getting recorded, right?
So we don't have to rename it. Nevertheless,
that's
okay, so yeah. So
we should rename the old PnP PowerShell as PnP PowerShell Legacy. No, never mind. I'll let you present. Oh, should I actually talk? No, never mind. Okay.
Can I? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I'm not going through all the changes because there's a lot of changes. Koen Zomers, he's helping me with this because there were so many PRs waiting and we had a long backlog of things to work through. He's been a great help. So a lot of things have been merged. Of course, everything that has been done in the core library automatically drills down to PnP PowerShell. So all the new things that Bert mentioned for, like, for instance, spaces and all that kind of stuff, that is automatically available in PnP PowerShell too. We don't have to do anything for that. A lot of other things, small changes, somewhat bigger changes, new commandlets, so a lot of things going on. And we're happily continuing working our way through the PRs, the outstanding PRs. And sometimes we have to merge a very old PR, sadly enough. So you will, if you still have an outstanding PR, we will look into them and try to merge them if relevant.
Cool. Let's actually move in forward. Thank you, Irvin. So let's go to the modernization tooling with Bert.
Yep. Again, the January drop from last week, .NET framework version bump, like same with PowerShell and .NET Core, because these things are kind of connected to each other. Some 2010 web art handling improvements and internal refactoring to being able to use like an iDistributed cache interface for all caching needs, which then enables to use the tooling in distributed scenarios, where, for example, plug and redis cache or other types of distributed cache solutions. What's coming next for the transformation framework, for page transformation more specifically, that's some improvements in table handling and image handling, especially when tables are malformed or when images are not there, not on the source anymore, but still referenced on the page. So we had some issues there, which have been fixed, and hopefully, not guaranteeing it, but I hope to have some work done on taxonomy mapping as well, being able to map classic on-prem taxonomy with a taxonomy in SharePoint Online, and then see how it just map the terms and the term sets so that they appear at the target site as well when you move a page from on-prem to online, for example. For the scanner, we actually also released 2.8 also last week, if I'm not mistaken. And that one has a new feature for a new scan mode called the homepage only scan, which is like the pages scan, which was there before, but only for home pages. And that one also produces a list, an additional file called sites with uncustomized home pages. Now you might wonder, like, why do we need that file for? So that file and the scanner change kind of is linked to a broader homepage modernization effort that's coming from Microsoft. And this helps you understand better, like, which home pages will be potentially modernized and how to work around that if you don't want it. So that's why this one will be helpful. And then the last thing, I keep repeating this because it's important. Delft blocks are retired. We will actually just remove them from the platform. If you still have Delft blocks, you can modernize those blocks into regular modern pages. So if you're in the situation, use page transformation to modernize. If you don't know, run the scanner in the block scan mode, which is pretty fast, and you will get at least an indication whether you are using blocks or Delft blocks. All right, that sums it up for me, Vesa.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Bert, for the updates, and Erwin as well, even though I try to confuse you as much as possible. So let's actually jump, AC, if you are ready to go to do a quick update on what's happening. But there was a good question from Christian already on, hey, was there an accident related on which issue and all of that? So let's actually walk this through together. We did a pretty massive updates yesterday related on SP Dev Docs, and we will do similar kind of things in other repos as well. But AC, I will let you to talk.
Cool, thank you. So I'm going to drop a link real quick into the chat. I'll refer to that in just a minute. So as Vesa said at the beginning of the call, we made a bunch of changes to the issue list. There's some process, some policy, and some actual changes that we made. It looks like I made all these changes, and I just want to make sure it's very clear to everybody. This is not some unilateral thing that I did. I'm simply the actor or the one whose user account got tagged with everything. So it looks like I was the kind of going through like crazy in the issue list. These are all things that I'm going to share with you. While it looks like I did them, they were all done with a lot of conversation with Microsoft. There was a lot of debate with this. It was not something that was done at a very off the cuff. We did this for many. We talked about this for many weeks internally before we did this. So, and everything was approved by Microsoft. Definitely open to feedback. So let me kind of explain what we did here. There's a handful of things that we ended up doing. So what you see here, I've got the issue list here. First of all, if you jump over to the wiki, there are now a few new pages in the wiki. You'll see them in the section in the navigation off on the left-hand side. So first of all, the issue list, and then there's a handful of other things that we have listed over here. If you take a look at the issue list page, this kind of explains what the general policy and is with the issue list as far as Microsoft looks at it. Specifically, what does belong in the issue list, what does not belong in the issue list, the approach to closed issues, the approach to locked issues. I'll talk about those in just a minute, as well as some issue templates. Now, I'm not going to walk through all of this stuff. I'm going to kind of let you look at this at your own time, and we will continue to update this as needed. The special action section I have at the very bottom is the link that I posted to the chat just a minute ago, and this explains all the stuff that happened yesterday. So specifically what we did, and I'll come back to this in just a minute, but one of the big things or big additions that we have to the issue list is that now when you go over to the issues and you go to create a brand new issue, you will be presented with the first step here of what kind of an issue you're going to create. Is it a bug or an error report? Is it a generic issue? That's kind of like what we had before. This generic question or generic issue is going to be the same thing if you click on this blank issue. A feature request, just as a heads up, as we explain in the wiki, feature requests don't belong in the issue list. We want those going to user voice because that's where Microsoft Engineering triages new feature requests to add them to their backlog. So as it explains in the issue, if you go to create it, it will flat out explain it. Go into preview here that it will say that if you do submit this as a feature request, it will be automatically labeled as a feature request and it will be automatically closed, which will point you to user voice. Feel free to use this if user voice isn't going to give you the formatting and stuff that you want and you want to reference the issue that was created. But we just trying to guide people in that direction that you will be automatically tagged and closed with the user voice request. The other thing too is that you see down here is that there are things that that this issue list is not for. So it is primarily for developer issues or development SharePoint development issues. If this is an issue that is related to end user, administrator, the end user experience, admin stuff, those things belong in the tech community site. If it is a feature request, again, it goes as user voice as well. So all of that stuff is going to end up, we have these different links here where you can go create those different issues. And we also refreshed or updated the template that gets created for the issue as well. So you'll see a bunch of additional things like describe the bug. We got this thing, please delete this guidance that you see here in this line, delete this one line before you submit it. And then at the very end, we even put like, developer environment stuff that we're looking for. All this stuff helps us quite a bit in helping you. The more information you can provide, the better it is. Now, some of the big things that we ended up doing, some big changes that we ended up doing to the issue list. First, there was a sweeping action that affected, let me look at my notes, roughly 250 of our 762 open issues. So what we ended up doing is there was a time last year, really falls down into 3 different categories. First of all, there was a time last year when the labeling capability that we have in our issue list wasn't working. And so we had roughly 80 some issues that had no labels assigned to them. Instead of walking through each one of those issues to figure out what this was, what category can we apply it to, in addition, those 80 issues, they had no activity on them for way over 6 months. So we took the approach of, instead of taking the time to detail each individual issue and trying to triage each of those 80 individual issues, that a lot of them very well may no longer be a problem or an issue or whatever, we're going to go ahead and close them. But when we closed everything, everything got a comment assigned to it with a link to one of their new sections in the wiki that explains what we did, why we did it, and how you can remediate that process. So if an issue of yours was automatically closed, or if it was automatically locked, which I'll explain in a second, we explain how you can remediate that. It's not like the last straw that you see when that happens. So that was one change we did. Another change that we did is that we went back and we looked at all issues that had that were open that had no activity on them in over 7 months. And that means there were no updates to it. There were no questions that were asked. Nobody did anything with these issues. They were effectively old things that nobody was doing. It very well could have been that some of these are still relevant today, that there's still bugs that are out there and they haven't been addressed. Totally get it. We have, when issues are recognized as a bug by Microsoft, they're put inside of they're added to an internal backlog, like a DevOps board at Microsoft. We don't have access to that. But when that happens, what they do is they actually go in and label those issues as a status tracked. And so what we did is we took all issues that had no activity on them for over 6 months and they were not being tracked, and we closed them and we locked them. Now, when we did that, when we closed them, again, we posted a message and said, here's what just happened. Here's why we did it. If you don't think this was done correctly, here's how you can remediate that and how you can do it. And there's already people that have been doing that stuff. I've seen a couple issues get submitted by people overnight. If I go to these closed issues, you'll see where someone said this thing that, hey, here's how I want to go. I want to get that issue opened back up. So they referenced the issue. And then we went back and we've already gone back to this issue and we've already unlocked it and opened it back up. If I scroll down here, we unlocked it and opened it back up to where the issue we can keep discussing it. Now, another challenge that we've had with the issue list lately is that when an issue is closed, generally speaking, I know not everybody believes this, but generally speaking, on an open repo like what we have here, when an issue is closed, people generally see that as resolved or conversation over. And you may not agree with that, but that's the vast majority of how people see stuff. When we had a closed issue and someone would go in after 6 months and say, I'm having this problem, can someone help me? Nobody was seeing that, and that's leaving a really bad experience for that one user, or at least nobody is seeing it that was not already involved with that issue. So if I was involved in the conversation in the original issue, then yeah, I'm going to get an email update. But if I wasn't, then I'm never going to see what this person asked, and they're going to think that nobody cares. So what we did is we followed a process that a lot of other repositories do, and we went ahead and locked any issues that were closed and they've had no activity in 7 days. So if an issue gets closed and then has no activity in 7 days, it gets locked, and that means that nobody can add any more comments to it. When that happens, we also add a comment saying, here's why we locked it. If you don't agree that this should have been locked, then here's how you can go back and remediate it. And you see here, even on the screenshot, I have a link here going to our wiki that explains here's how you do that. And effectively, it's just go open a new issue, reference this one, tell us why. All right, and we're not trying to keep people from posting stuff. We're just trying to make it a more efficient place to go through and to address people's feedback. Okay. There are also automations that have been set up so that this will happen automatically in the future. So if you received a whole bunch of emails overnight that said issues were closed, and then you deleted all those notifications and you saw a bunch more show up, this automation runs every 24 hours and it will check to see are there any issues that have been closed that also have no activity on them, and if so, go ahead and lock them. You'll see stuff that's being done by this bot, and we have a couple other little automations and stuff that's like that as well. That's generally the big changes that we've made. We've also got some nice pages here that we've added about how to create a good issue, things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do, how to create a PR as well. We put that in there as well, and some extra explanation on some of our issue labels that we use and such. So I'm going to turn this back over to the next presenter. But again, I'll be on the chat and I'm happy to answer any detailed questions about this. And if you have any feedback on stuff that we did that you don't like, or stuff that we did that you would suggest that we should also consider and do. Again, the idea here is this issue list, we want to make it engaging. We want to make it the best resource for you to be able to ask questions and submit issues and errors that you find with the SharePoint developer experience. But we also have to follow a couple little rules here to make sure that we can do stuff. I mean, someone tells me that, hey, I did this in the SharePoint Admin Center and it didn't work. How do I fix this? It's like, we can't do anything about that in this issue list. That really goes in the tech community site or as a real issue that's submitted through your Microsoft 365 portal. So with that, again, I'm happy to just answer any questions that you've got on the chat.
Cool. There wasn't actually too many questions on the chat for now. Let's see if we get more when Chris starts presenting. I want to recap. Andrew Connell wasn't the person who created the process. He wasn't the person who made the decisions. He wasn't the person who now accidentally closed your issue. It was a decision by Microsoft, and we work with a lot of the MVPs because that's how we scale. So if we, by an accident, closed any of your issue, there is again remediation on instructions, and we do apologize, but this is for the common good for everybody. So let's reset and move forward from there. And I do apologize if somebody got offended on that. Anyway, let's actually jump on Chris's table. Chris, is the new movie Back to the Future 4 coming soon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take it away.
All right. Woo. All right, everybody. Hello. I'm Chris Kent. There's all my stuff. And let's get going. All right, we're going to talk about list formatting. Surprise. All right. Let's see if I can. There we go. So we've got our classic warrior horses site, of course. As you guys may or may not know, horses, especially warrior horses, are highly collaborative, right? So they have things like Microsoft Teams where they can collaborate in. Now, in the past, they've hated it because they love list formatting so very much. But now there's some new exciting things, at least in targeted release. So if we go over to our warrior horses team site, I'm just going to join on the web here so I don't mess up my presentation. And we come in here and we take a look at the stable, right? We've got a general tab. We come over to our files tab. Here we can start to see there's a slightly new view here. And you know you've got the new view if your open in SharePoint is not teal, just as an FYI. So for instance, my standard release template, I've still got the teal and the formatting doesn't work there. But here, we've got it in my targeted release tenant. So you can see I've added a nice column here called point horses. These are the people responsible for these documents. All right, so that's helpful. Be able to add additional columns and do some cool stuff. So let's add some formatting in here to make this even more valuable. Now, the first thing you'll notice is if I go to column settings, I don't have any option to format this column here within Teams. So that's where I got to use that Open in SharePoint button. So I click that and we go to the lovely team site. Similar list. Now, I have noticed a couple of weirdness in the past few days. We've had several issues submitted on it. There are some strange behavior, some of the list formatting. I'm not really experiencing most of those here in my targeted release tenant, but I am seeing some strangeness. Like you can see right here, it's jammed all these names together without any formatting applied, whereas generally it looks like this. So there's a couple of strange things happening right now. It shouldn't affect the demo here, but if you're running into something, you can let me know, open an issue. I don't work for Microsoft, so I can't do much, but I will feel sad with you. How's that? Okay, so we come over here. And now the first thing we're going to do is just kind of show basic formatting. So if we format the current view, we're just going to take the one that kind of default suggests for us, alternate row styles, which adds that every other row is gray. And how do you go away? We'll move that over there. We'll save that. And now if we save that and we come back over here, we'll switch over to a post tab. We'll come back to our files tab. You'll see that is reflected here, right? So our view formatting is fully supported. That's nice. So what about column formatting? So I've got this, multi-person field here. So I'm going to go over here to our spdev list formatting repo. So this is over in GitHub. Again, we've got nearly 70 samples in here of how to do different column samples and view samples. And it's a great starting off point. But I highly suggest you go over here. And all you got to do to navigate is go down here to column samples. And then I'm going to look for the field type I've got, multi-person, face pile. This is one we've shown off before, but I like it because it's going to show a couple things and a couple differences in teams. So right here in GitHub, I'm just going to grab all of that. Right click, I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to go here to my column settings, format this column. And in this nice window here, I'm just going to paste what I got from GitHub and I'm going to hit save on that. All right, so let's get rid of that. So you see now we've got a nice format. It really shows off our multi-people fields, right? You can hover over it and see their names, right? You can see the additional people. That kind of stuff kind of cleans that up, looks really nice. And if come over here, and again, we'll come back to the tab. We can see now our column format is showing up, which is great. You also notice the strange thing is that the sort is always applied here, even though it's not a part of the view. Weird, strange, but fun. Okay, now a couple of things to note with this. So if we take a look here, so we see that showing up in Teams, which is awesome. Here on the web, it'll also show up in the main client, no problem. But if we take a look at something like the mobile, maybe later. All right, so we take a look at our mobile devices here. We go over to General, and we switch over to our Files tab. You'll see that we don't get that same kind of experience. So just be aware that the list format and the view formatting is currently, at least I haven't heard otherwise, but currently is not supported in the Teams mobile app. I'm showing the iOS, but the Android is the same. Another thing to note is that if we add a new tab, right, where generally you wouldn't do this particular scenario, but if you had a document library, right, we're going to choose the stable, and we're just going to grab that same one with the Files tab. Right, we're going to go over here. That's fine. You'll notice that when we add that, we get that kind of class experience. This is what I mean by the open in SharePoint's teal. We don't get any of those pieces there. This is kind of that specialized Teams view. All right, so when you come in here, we don't even see our additional column. So just something to be aware of. There are still some limitations here, but it is coming soon. And we don't want that junk. Bye. So come back here to our Files tab. A couple other things to note. So we've got the format. It's working. It's great. I've chosen this format, though, specifically because it demonstrates a couple of differences between Microsoft Teams view and with your modern list view. And just a couple of things you have to be aware of in your format. So if we format this right here, again, we're going to ignore some of this, but if we come down here, I've added this vertical align baseline to the image. Now, if I delete that here and we save that, you'll notice it changes 0 things here in just a moment. Saving. It's a very complex format, apparently. Give that a second here. But while that's doing that, what's going to happen is you'll notice that nothing happens here, but in Teams, you'll notice a slight shift because of how that's working. Yeah, maybe that's what's going on. Oh, man. Let's just go ahead and try and refresh that while that's saving. Maybe it's saved. We'll see if we got it applied. So we see, yeah, we can already see the difference here. You'll notice the rounding is different. So there's some definite CSS kind of defaults that are different. In this case, the image element type has a vertical line set to middle in Teams by default, whereas in SharePoint Online, it appears to be set to baseline. So again, not something you generally have to worry about, but the idea here is test your formats in both if you intend to apply them in both. The other one here would be the @current_web. So that's something we've used before, where we're pulling these images, right? So here you can see we're pulling them from the layouts, user photo. And if we were to create that, the current web will put the absolute web URL on there. But if we took that away, all right, we just had to do a relative link. All right, we'll save that here. So it works just fine in SharePoint. because it's just going to grab that first part of our sites and everything's good. But again, if we come back here and we refresh our Files tab, now we are sad, very, very sad. So just keep that in mind as you're working in teams to make sure you're doing things like absolute links with the @current_web, and then just testing things to see that there are some very, very minor CSS differences. There's also varying levels of support for the UI fabric themes here. So for our theme colors and other stuff, you'll tend to see those show up as purple rather than your theme colors, and it's kind of ignoring some of that. All right, so that's cool. That's great format show up, but let's do something a little more team specific here. So I've got another sample here. If we go back right into our face pile, we have a multi-person Teams chat link. So we're going to grab this format. Let's take a look at what it does. Now it's actually a fairly simple format. Let's copy it, apply it, and we can take a look at what it does. Paste that sucker. Save that. So what it's really doing is, if we take a look, it's just a link, and it's got an icon here, right? And then it's got text that says ask a question. The key here is in the href for the link, right? So it's building this deep link into Teams chat by combining our fields here. So it's joining all the current field email and building that in. And then it's also bringing the topic name is the file leaf ref, so that's the name of the file. And then it's automatically setting a message. So what does that really look like, right? So if we take a look, if we click on, say, dinosaur coloring book, we can click that. We're going to say, just join on the web again. Close our other one just for fun. For a second, what we did was we automatically started a chat, right, with the 4 people we said were responsible for that particular document. We gave the title of the chat when it's 3 or more people up here, so dinosaur coloring book. We gave a starter message of nay, right? So that's pretty awesome. So the idea that you can deep link into chat and integrate that directly with your list is really, really powerful. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff you can do there. So this is deep linking to a chat, that you can deep link to tabs, even your custom tabs. You can deep link to the scheduling dialog and so on. So there's quite a bit you can do there, and it's very, very cool. One caution with that is that the deep linking when you're already inside Teams, right? So if I go over to File, it's slightly strange because Teams expects the deep link to come through JavaScript. And so if you really want that truly integrated experience where it's not going to ask you to do this, you'll need to use something like a field customizer, but that's probably a little overkill. This is pretty easy to go for and create those chats. Okay. All right. So awesome stuff. Again, that's a sample that's already available. Check it out. Quick recap. So File tab supports the formatting. Document Library tab doesn't. Mobile's sad for now. But really take advantage of those deep links and really apply those formats. So you can bring that same awesome things you've been doing directly to your Files tab. Adding a List tab to Teams and then providing those formats is a great way to make a very simple application right there in your main pane of glass that people are using all day long. It's a great way to really simplify things and emphasize what they should be doing right there. So formatting saves the day again. So check it out here. You can go check out the full documentation. All this documentation applies to Teams as well as the modern list view. And then you can see the 2 samples there. And if you want to read more about Teams deep links, that link is there as well. All right, that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Awesome. Let's actually then jump on Franck's screen.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Franck Cornu. I'm a 365 and SharePoint developer and founder of my company called aequos and based in Montreal. So today we will show you a quick tutorial that we've made with Vincent a couple of weeks ago about workspace provisioning, especially the Office 365 groups provisioning. But first, Vincent, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Vincent. Some of you might know me from the days I used to be an MVP. Now I'm a PM on the Microsoft Graph team. So if you have any questions or feedback about the Microsoft Graph, you can contact me if you want. Interesting enough, since I joined Microsoft, I don't have access to the chat on the PnP calls. So if you want to run jokes about me, go in the chat. I cannot see them. That's all good. So to provide a little bit of context about this new repository and this effort we put together with Franck. Franck and I, on our own separate sites, over time, we built multiple provisioning engines that reflect for some customers line of business requirements around, hey, I want to provision things, but according to my line of business scenarios, because I have a set of rules, because I have a set of things that need to happen. And it needs to be consistent, self-service, and a few other things like that. And we got the opportunity almost 2 months ago now to animate a workshop together, to co-animate a workshop together around how do you go and start building your provisioning engine. Doesn't matter your business requirements, doesn't matter what you're doing. You have a few fundamentals, if you want, that you need to set in place so you can build a provisioning engine and be successful with it in your company. And with that, I will hand it back to Franck so he can show you what the repository contains and how do you go about using the content and experimenting on your side.
Thank you, Vincent. So so first thing, you have a dedicated repository on GitHub. So you have URL here. So basically, this is a solution coming from a real project, a real customer project. So it provides very basic building blocks to create a provisioning solution, especially the Office 365 groups provisioning solution. So the initial context was, in my case, to avoid let's say the SharePoint site sprawling, because when you create the Office 365 groups through Teams or through a team sites, so it creates SharePoint sites, and sometimes you want to apply a template to this SharePoint site, let's say to create some metadata columns and the classification and so on. So this is for the context. You can also read a blog post by Laura Kokarinen about the provisioning concerns. So give you more context about this. So I will jump to the architectures first. So the architecture is pretty simple. So first of all, we have a workspace request list, which is a SharePoint list. Of course, this one can be updated or enhanced by a Power Apps application or SPFX web part to take the information, to grab the information from the user, so the workspace name and so on. Then we have some Azure artifacts. So the first one would be a webhook, SharePoint webhook, to catch the event of the new item creation. Then we have a logic application. So this will be to run the provisioning routine through an automation runbook with PowerShell using PnP templates, XML templates, and the communication between SharePoint and Graph API will be done by an Azure Active Directory application. And we have also a Teams configuration. So I will show you this right now. So I will show you the end user experience. So I've created a site here with a workspace request list. So basically the experience is just to create a new item. So we provide in this solution very basic fields like what is the name of my workspace, PnP 3. Provide some metadata, so based on taxonomy. This one will be used as default value for a specific column in your site. So just an example, who will be the owner? And for instance, the member you want to add, and a quick description.
And while you do that, the very interesting about this, it's basic concepts on how do you go about setting provisioning engines. If you look at the category and the taxonomy we're using, then you can leverage that in your engine in terms to do things like apply retention labels and policies, tag some items for search and discovery, or use that for you could build a web part to to discover the different workspaces that are already in place. That unlocks a set of scenarios that you can use and implement at your company. And the goal of this content and training is to show you how do you go about, what alternatives and options you have to implement those basic blocks for getting a request, automating things, creating things on different places like SharePoint or Office 365 or Teams and so on and so forth.
Yep. So I won't wait for the creation, but I will take a previously created one. So behind the scenes, so a new Office 365 group has been created with a SharePoint site. So it's not very impressive here, but basically a template has been applied with some metadata, some columns, and also a teams has been created with specific channels and so on. So I will go to the technical part of this thing. So first of all, you will have to create a new Azure Ready application. So if I go to my Azure tenant, so I created a new Azure Ready application with specific permissions. So make sure you use the same Azure tenant as your Office 365 tenant. So you will need graph permission and SharePoint permission configured with application permission and not delegated permission. So these are the minimum permission that you will need to set up to get it work. So next, it will be the creation of the Azure artifact, like the I showed in the application architecture. So this services and artifact can be created in another Azure tenant if you want. This is the case here. So I've created. If I go back to the architecture, the first thing I've created is the SharePoint webbook as a function. So I've created an Office 365 provisioning group. Then I have another function. We'll show you just the code. Basically, the Azure function, yeah. So the Azure function here is to implement the SharePoint webbook. You will see this is a minified code, and to create your own code, I provide you the code here in the repository. So you have a SP trigger function. So this function is written in using TypeScript, because I'm a TypeScript guy. So I like to write TypeScript everywhere, backend and frontend. So the purpose of this function is just to get the new event, the new item event, and pass it to the logic application. So why using a webbook over a logic app trigger? Because when using logic app, you can use the built-in trigger when a new item is created in a list. It's about the strategy and the cost involved in this situation. When using the default trigger, this will be a polling strategy, meaning the system will make a call every n seconds to get a new item. This will be counted as an action within Azure, so you'll be charged for that. Instead of doing that, and because it's cool, we made a webbook. So instead of polling the system regularly, we will be notified by SharePoint there is a new item in the list. So in terms of cost, it's more optimized. So basically, this function gets retrieve the new items. So we just want the add operation here and send only the ID of the new item in the list. Then this ID will be used by the logic application. So if I go back to my Office Azure group, I will have a logic app here. So basically, the logic app take an HTTP request with only the item ID of the SharePoint item. Then we just get the information about this item, set the provisioning status, and the interesting part is using a runbook, create a new job running a PowerShell runbook. So in this workbook, basically, you will have a PowerShell script. So if you go back to my code, here you have a PowerShell script called new workspace.ps1. Basically, it's a regular PowerShell script using PnP PowerShell to apply provisioning templates and configure the SharePoint site. So basically, what you have to know here, the important parts here are the connection to the graphs. So To communicate with the graph, you will need an application ID and an application secret. And to communicate with SharePoint, you will have to get a certificate. So this is the main difference. So before deploying this solution, you will have to create a self-signed certificate, then configure it to your runbook. So SharePoint, so you can just communicate with SharePoint using this certificate. This is all explained in the tutorial. So the communication will be with the certificate. So basically, we create a new unified group here. So it will create a new Office 365 group. And an interesting thing here is because this script is run as the application identity, the Office 365 group owners will be the application, the Azure AD application. So that's not what we want here. So what we need to do is to set the owner manually after the creation. And this operation, let's say it's not instantaneous. So it can be weird for the users. They create their workspace and they are not owner right now. They have to wait a couple of minutes because behind the scenes, the permission are synchronized between all the workloads behind the Office 365 groups. So that's why we set up the owners manually after the group's creation. Then we just apply a new provisioning template to the site. Very simple here. And we configure taxonomy values. So we configure metadata for this site. So for this, we use the property bag of the site collection. And I give you a trick here. So you can just reuse the same format as a taxonomy value for the search. So you will be able to use this categorization for the search and especially the modern search web part. So just follow this format to represent the taxonomy value, and you will be able to use it within the modern search. Yeah, and then basically you can do whatever you want in this script. You have the connection set up and the template provided. It's a very simple template, so you can just add it, add your stuff here. And if I go back to the logic application, so I just pass this parameter to my script, wait for the job to finish, and then notify the user the group has been created. And also, I forgot the Teams part. We also create some Microsoft Teams on the hood, and we configure some channels just to give you an example on how to create and configure a team inside Microsoft Teams. So for that, Vincent wrote a quick function, another function as well, written in C#. So you can have the code right here, Teams config function. And basically, this will create new channel according to your template within the Office 365 group and the teams behind it. So basically, you can adapt the logic application according to your requirements. You have the code, you have all the tutorial here. So make sure you have all the prerequisites before running this tutorial, and it's very detailed. So we've made a live presentation of this during a workshop. It works, so you can just go through all the steps and see all the screenshots associated with all the steps. And if you have issues, just raise your issue in the issue leads within this repository. And of course, if you have questions, just reach me or Vincent
Yes, and as Frank mentioned, even though we're talking about a lot of different technologies and it might be frightening, we were able to go through the whole tutorial with 20 people. Some of them were developers, some of them were citizen developers, let's call it this way, and everyone went through the tutorial at the end of the day, in one day. Even if you're not super interested about provisioning, it's a very good way to get exposure to .NET Core, TypeScript development, Azure Functions, Azure Logic Apps, and a lot of other technologies like the Microsoft Graph and PnP PowerShell and PnP provisioning. It's kind of a mashup of a lot of technologies you will see, and it's very interesting for you to ramp up on all those different technologies at once if you go through the steps. The steps are very detailed, and if you see things that don't make sense or so on, again, issues, pull requests, even if you feel like offering a pull request to fix the content. And yeah, everything is here on the repo for you to follow.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, guys. I'm being conscious about the time as well because I have a hard stop. Unless there's anything specific which we're still missing, or should I jump up back on the slides and just close up?
Take it away, Vesa.
Excellent. So really awesome stuff. Super useful. Like I said, it is an awesome exercise to learn how to get started on things, and it's a self-service guidance, or you can actually even reuse that as your workshop, even potentially. But obviously let Frank and Vincent know if there's any issues on that. So brilliant stuff. Now you can probably see my slides. Just to recap, next SharePoint Dev special interest group call is on February 6th. So within 2 weeks, and the next SharePoint Framework group call is within a week. We do have already community demos queued up on these, and obviously updates from Microsoft as we move along on this journey and introduce new things. Stay up to date on what we do in social media, and please, if there's any feedback, anything, please let us know how we can improve our community engagement, and if something is missing, please let us know. Learn, reuse, share. Sharing is caring. AKMS SB PnP. Thank you. We'll be definitely in touch. See you in a week.